Good evening. Winter has slammed the south with snow covering much of the province, causing road closures, school closures and treacherous driving conditions. Police are warning motorists to avoid driving if possible and to reduce speeds. Parts of northern and eastern Southland were today blanketed in snow, the extreme opposite of dry conditions that plagued the areas just a month ago. In stark contrast to drought conditions affecting the northern and eastern Southland areas just last month, farmers face the same problem of being forced to use winter feed earlier than anticipated. The close of autumn and the start of winter conditions means farmers could lose precious grazing pasture early, according to Riversdale farmer Peter O'Connor.
The biggest effect it will have is that there's left a lot of snow on the mountains and hills, and that will definitely bring in the start of winter with lower temperatures.
He says the late autumn conditions have been quite good up until now, although he says he and others are already using winter feed.
Yes, I think everyone's worried just how soon the onset of winter is, because most people will be running short of feed this winter, fairly close to the margins this winter as far as feed goes. Yeah.
He says growing conditions for winter crops like kale and swede have been less than ideal in the lead up to autumn.
Aphid were very bad in Southland this year, but I've never seen a drought that has thrashed our swede crops like it has this year. Yeah. So it was both aphid and dry conditions.
Meanwhile, the weather affected many schools in the south, Belford Primary included. School transport has made the decision early not to risk the bus run, but that didn't stop some from playing in the school grounds. There were signs where vehicles lost control in snowy conditions, and Gore Police Sergeant Cherie Leitz says fortunately there have been no reports of injury.
At this stage we've only had one reported accident, and that happened at about 10 to 7 last night, where a vehicle fell off the road due to ice, but no injuries were sustained.
She says drivers need to be mindful of road safety and drive to conditions.
If you don't have to drive, please don't. Stay at home, stay off the roads. Obviously drive to the conditions. If you do need to drive, reduce the speed and make sure that you have control of or are capable of driving your vehicle at that speed on the snow and ice.
And shares a reminder of hefty penalties that apply.
Make sure your window screens are clear when you're driving. That's a big thing, especially with the snow. It's a $150 infringement if you have ice on your window screen, so make sure they're clear.
Driving conditions have been treacherous in some parts, although not bad enough to affect milk collection, with Fonterra trucks reaching suppliers around the south today. Forecasters say we can expect milder conditions overnight, a few showers and some snow on inland roads before improving on Thursday. In the meantime, animals, children and adults alike are making the most of the novelty of snow while it lasts. Margot Southland, South Today News. Government will spend $9.5 million on a breakfast in schools program over the next 5 years. Prime Minister John Key today announced the Fonterra and Sanitarium's Kickstart breakfast program will be expanded, increasing from 2 to 5 mornings a week in decile 1 to 4 schools. Government will pay for half the program, with the other half being matched in value by Fonterra and Sanitarium, which will distribute the breakfasts. The program will gradually be rolled out to all those schools wanting and needing it. Kids Can will be allocated $1.5 million over 3 years, targeted to clothing and health care. The Southern District Health Board is not meeting national targets in several areas, although improvements have been seen almost across the board, according to the latest quarterly results for the 2012 to 13 year. The Southern DHB is meeting target for shorter cancer treatment wait times and increased immunisation. However, the DHB falls 1% below target for improved access to elective surgery and is also not meeting target in smoking cessation and diabetes and health checks. Meanwhile, improvements were seen in the quarter for shorter emergency department stays, smoking cessation, diabetes and heart checks and increased immunisation. Cancer treatment times were unchanged and elective surgery access saw a drop. Proposed increases to electricity prices on Stewart Island have been met with strong opposition. Southland District Council had proposed an increase of 84% to the Stewart Island Electricity Supply Authority's general tariff, increasing it from close to $53 a month to almost $97. 29 submissions were made in opposition to the increase outlined in the Council's draft annual plan. Council today decided to drop this to 61% or $85 a month. However, this means a proposed decrease in usage costs will lessen. Southland District Council Services and Assets Group Manager Ian Marshall says the increase was necessary as the authority has been running at a loss in recent years, and rebalancing the costs between usage and fixed charges was needed. Final tenders for construction of Stage 1 of the Around the Mountains Cycle Trail will be let this week. Work's expected to begin mid-June, and Southland District Council says to ensure Stage 1 from Kingston to Mossburn meets the October 31st deadline, it will be separated into 5 different tenders. Stage 1's costs will be covered by $4 million in government funding. Some elements of work, such as bridges and fencing, are about to be tendered. Council is also working on Stage 2 and is looking for extra funding for this. After the break, why a new report shows Invercargill could be a better place to own a home. Welcome back. Invercargill is a far more affordable place to own a house than the national average. According to the Roost Home Loan Affordability report released today, it took close to 56% of a single median income to afford a mortgage on a median house. In Invercargill, that figure was just over 31%, while Queenstown was more than 88%. Nationally, affordability improved 1.5% in April compared to March, but the trend remains toughest in major cities and easiest in provincial centres. A year ago, affordability was just over 53% nationally. New Zealand's exports rose 2.2% to $4 billion in April. According to figures from Statistics New Zealand, the rise in exports was led by meat and edible offal, followed by petroleum and products. However, after removing seasonal effects, exports fell 8.6% comparing April to March. Meanwhile, the value of imports rose almost 7.5%, 3.8% in April, rising on the back of petroleum imports, vehicles, parts and accessories. New street lighting is being trialled in the Invercargill suburb of Windsor with the aim of making energy savings. Invercargill City Council is trialling 3 types of LED lights in a section of Windsor Street. In a report to Council, Roading Manager Russell Pearson says the trial is being undertaken to better understand the lighting and to compare energy consumption and identify potential long-term savings for Council. The lights are controlled by a remote wireless management system. As part of the trial, it's proposed the lights be dimmed at different times to look at energy consumption and how residents respond. Invercargill financial advisor Stephen O'Connor has been recognised for his contribution to the industry. The Institute of Financial Advisors presented Mr O'Connor with the Outstanding Contribution to the Profession Award at its Gala Awards recently. Each year, a single recipient is recognised on behalf of the financial services industry for their outstanding contribution over an extended period of time. IFA President Nigel Tate says Mr O'Connor's contribution to the profession has been extraordinary. His commitment to high professional standards and work in helping to develop the profession and ensure it meets global standards has had a huge influence. Southland students are being encouraged to shoot for the stars this week, with a space expert promoting careers in the industry. Retired European Space Operations Centre Acting Director of Satellite Operations, Jean-Francois Coffleur, is visiting around 15 schools to promote the space industry. This morning he visited Invercargill students at the Enrich at ILT Centre. This visit is part of the New Zealand European Space Agency arrangement, which requires ESA to promote educational opportunities for students. He says there are a lot of opportunities in the space industry in the future.
Space is for me the adventure of the 21st century. The young generation is there to make that adventure. There is a lot of disciplines covered by space, starting from medical disciplines in the astronaut field, engineering to build the satellite, science to exploit the data of the satellites to understand the universe. And I see a lot of talents today from the questions. I have been very impressed by their knowledge already there. So their questions were very valuable questions, and when I make presentation at the conference, sometimes I'm not getting this quality of question.
Now, in terms of Southland, what kind of opportunities do you see here in the space industry in the future?
So we have with our ground station, our tracking station, which is tracking Ariane at its launch, and the first one will happen in June next month. I think there is a possibility to exploit this ground facility, to have maybe bigger antennas, to track other type of missions. The location, very south, is very good for Earth observation satellites, which are flying over the pole. So I think with that start already, this initiative with this tracking station, you have potential to do more, much more, in my opinion.
Do you think it could become a big industry for Southland in the future?
Here, you have, of course, that is difficult because the space is not too much market-oriented. But of course, we need engineers, we need companies to build, to manufacture an antenna, to build composites of components of a spacecraft. So I would guess yes, but you have to link yourself with the rest of the world. The world is driven by China, India, US, Europe in terms of space. So you have to hook somewhere on a boat to make sure that you are engaged in this adventure. The potential is there. I see these young people, I'm sure in the future some of them will hopefully be in space.
And that's it from news. Coming up in sport, the Southern Steel fall to the Vixens. From the news team, good night.